What's up, y'all? If you're new here, my name is Amanda, and today I'm going to talk about my cancer diagnosis at the age of 32. I just started my YouTube. A lot of you guys are over here from TikTok, and so I really just have wanted to share my story and share my entire cancer journey with women and just people to make them feel like they aren't alone. I'm sure cancer has affected you as it's affected every single person like out there in some capacity, but being on this side of cancer feels completely different. So I'm just gonna go through how I was diagnosed, how I found my cancer, and kind of just where I'm at in my treatment now. Last year in 2022, in July, I found a lump on my right breast, and I didn't really take it that serious. I just was kind of like, oh, this is weird, because it was small enough to feel like it was a cyst. I was asking friends to check it, and they were like, oh, I'm sure you're fine. And oddly enough, right before I caught it, I was about to go on 2 work trips where I was going to be gone for 2 weeks total. And I was like flying all over the place. And so I was like, this is not the time for me to be able to go and try to find a gynecologist, because I didn't have a gynecologist to kind of do like a checkup for me, because I had never gone to get a mammogram or anything. I was 32 years old. And so I was like, okay, gynecologists, they're the ones who do breast exams. They'll be able to tell me like what to do. But I didn't have a gynecologist. So what do you do when you don't have a gynecologist? You put things off longer and longer. And so long story short, I go on my work trips. I come back. It's now August. And I'm like calling around to these places to get an appointment. There's like no appointments in time, like no appointments that like they can't get me in for like weeks at a time. So I'm just kind of like getting so busy with work, and I'm just like, I'll figure it out. I ended up going to a friend's wedding and having the time of my life. Of course, every single time I was going out, I was like, would be drinking my drink on the dance floor, and I would be feeling this, and started getting like more and more stressed about like, what is this? Because it felt like it was kind of getting bigger at this point. So I go to this wedding, and I go to the bathroom in the large stall with the bride and her friend. And I had never met her friend before, and she was wasted. Okay, she was like all over the place. And she miraculously tells me that she's a gynecologist. And I was just like, what? Like, oh my God. Okay, so I was like, can you please do a breast exam on me? I was like, I don't have a gynecologist. I've been freaking out about this. I know we don't know each other, but like, throw me a bone here. And she's like drunkenly like, okay. And I like pull my dress down, and she's like, lift your arms up. And she does the exam on my breast, and she's like, I seriously don't think it's anything. She's like, but I would go get a mammogram just to be safe. And I was like, okay, perfect. Now, mind you, I was not worried because breast cancer does not run in my family, and I had only knew like 2 people my entire life that had breast cancer. And also I was like, I'm 32, I'm a personal trainer, I'm the healthiest person I know. I literally like barely touch sugar, barely touch processed foods. There's no way that this would ever be cancer. And like anytime any of this is happening, you always want to convince yourself like, I'm fine. Like there's no way that anything like this could ever happen to me, right? So I was still like, okay, every single bit of reassurance that I got from people, it was like more reassurance for myself. So I was like, okay, I'm good. So this wedding was in San Diego. I live in LA. I get back to LA that week, and I contact one of my friends who's a few years older than me, and she had gone through a mammogram the previous year because she had also found a lump. So I called her and I was like, where did you go? And she was like, Valley Breast Care in Los Angeles. They offer free mammograms, free ultrasounds, especially if you say you don't have insurance. And I have insurance, but it's state insurance. And so I didn't really want to have to like pay for this. So like the lady was like, it's fine, I'll mark you down as not having insurance, and we'll pay for all of this for you. And I was like, you are amazing, thank you so much. So if you are in Los Angeles and you need to get a free checkup, a mammogram, Valley Breast Care, they were amazing. So I went through the mammogram and I went through the ultrasound, and the ultrasound took quite a bit of time, and the woman was like really looking at it, and she was like, I'm gonna see if the radiologist is available, see if he can read it immediately and contact you. And I was just like, okay. And when I had gotten there, the nurse like palpated the cyst, the tumor, And she was reassuring me. She was like, honestly, I think it's fine. Like, I don't think you have really anything to worry about. And she's like, especially because it moves around. So usually that's a good sign when the tumor like moves around and it's not like fixated in anything. So I was like, okay, again, another hit of reassurance. I'm gonna be fine. And in the ultrasound, I asked the woman, I was like, do you see anything? Does it look normal? And she was like, unfortunately, like I'm not allowed to say, like the radiologist is gonna have to call you, yada, yada. And I was like, okay. So I leave, then they call me back and they say, we need to do a biopsy and we need to do 2 biopsies in your breast. She's like, there's a couple spots and questions, but we wanna make sure. I had never had a biopsy before, okay? I was just like, literally thinking, okay, I'm gonna do this biopsy, it's gonna be fine. I didn't know that a lot of times when you do biopsies, a lot of times it means cancer. Like I had no idea, okay? I just went into this blindly, I was like, I'm just gonna get this done. So they're like, you're gonna go and get 2 biopsies. It's a needle biopsy. There's a spot behind your nipple in question, and then there's another spot like we're gonna pull out from the tumor that we found. And I was like, okay. So my friend goes with me. I go to this biopsy. Oh my gosh, like they numb it, of course, right? Like you don't feel anything, but you're basically pressed up in this mammogram machine and they have to put the needle down in your breast, and it has to be within like a millimeter of the spot that they want to pull the tissue from. So you have to go into this mammogram and they're positioning you, they take pictures, oh that position's not right, they readjust you, take another picture, oh that position's not right, readjust you, take another picture, oh okay, it's perfect, stay right there, don't move, don't move, don't move, don't move. The doctor's gonna come in, he's gonna do the biopsy. And I was like, great. And of course the doctor walks in, he's like so attractive, and I just was like, oh my gosh, like nothing more mortifying than have your boob squished between 2 panes of glass, looking horrendous, and just being like, hi, like do my mammogram for me. So they numb the area with lidocaine. The doctor comes in, he needles all the areas he needs to with lidocaine, and then he inserts the needle. And I'm like, I can't even look, my face is like this, I don't even want to look. And he goes in, he's like, okay, we got the spot perfectly. And then all of a sudden I feel like liquid running down my arm, and I'm just like, my face is still like this to the side, so I can't see anything. So I'm like, am I bleeding? And they're like, yeah, you're bleeding a little bit. And then the nurse is like telling the assistant, go get gauze, go get towels, go get like blah 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 blah. And I'm just like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, like what is happening? They're like, we're gonna pull the needle out, but like don't move when you come out. And I was like, okay. So like they pulled the needle out, and I just like turned my head to look, and there was like blood everywhere. They're like, this happens, we hit a blood vessel, but like don't worry, we'll clean it up. And I just was like, oh my gosh. Like, and this was only the first biopsy. I had to go through another biopsy. Anyways, they clean me up, and then they're like, we're gonna give you a second, and then we're gonna do this again. We gotta set you up again. We gotta numb you, and then we're gonna put the needle in again. The second one went much better than the first one, but so I was just like, oh my god, like this was so traumatizing. But the one key takeaway that was so important and that I remembered to this day was when I was in the waiting room. So you're in the waiting room, they call you back, and then you go to like a holding room, and you're all in your like little pink gowns, and you're sitting there with other women. And the women all were Latina, and they were all speaking in Spanish, but eventually they started to like speak to me in English because I started talking to one of the ladies, and it was like all of them were diagnosed with breast cancer. And I was just like, wow, this is really scary, this is really surreal. And it was starting to hit me like, what if this is cancer? Like there's no way, like how would my life be changed completely if I was diagnosed with cancer? And I was starting to like freak out. And this woman said to me, she looked me in the face and she was like, no matter what happens, whether today you get diagnosed with cancer or they say it's not cancer, you have to be so strong for yourself, and you have to be your own best friend, because when your mind is not strong, your body knows, and your body will not be strong. She was like, everything starts in here. So from this day moving forward, you have to be like a warrior. You have to be so mentally strong, because you will get through it, and you have to be positive, and you have to tell yourself that you will get through it. And I was just like, thank you so much. Like that meant so much to me in that moment when I was like freaking out. And so after my biopsies were done, I left and I went home, and my friend was with me, and of course I was like super sore and I was so bruised for like days, and I couldn't work out. And as a trainer, it's really hard because, you know, I'm teaching classes and I have clients and I'm working out myself and I teach on camera, so it was like so limiting with my body. And that was like maybe like a Wednesday or something, I don't remember. But a few days go by, I still don't hear from the doctor. The weekend goes by, I don't hear from the doctor, and then it's like a Monday and I get a call from the nurse, and it's a Monday afternoon and I'm leaving the gym and I get a call and they're like, "Hey Amanda, it's the nurse from Valley Breast Care. We got your results from the biopsy and we want you to come in tomorrow to get your results." And I just was driving and I was like, my heart sank to my stomach and I was like, "What do you mean you want me to come in?" Because I used to work in health IT. I have a health science degree and I used to work in hospitals all around the country for 3 years. And I knew if I have to go in for results, that's never a good sign. Like if they can't tell you over the phone what's going on, like that's never a good sign. So I was like, "What do you mean you can't tell me my results over the phone?" And they were like, she was like, "I just can't tell you results over the phone, so I'm gonna need you to come in. Is tomorrow, like right when we open at 10, is that okay?" And I was just like, yeah, that's fine, I'll be there. Immediately call my sister and I'm hysterical and I'm just like, I know it's something bad. Like I know it, I am so intuitive, I feel it, like this can't be good if they want me to come in. And my sister was like, "Amanda, you can't think into the future. You can only process the information that you have now. So let yourself only process the information that you have now, and whatever happens, you'll deal with it then." And I was just like, okay. She's like, "Go distract yourself, like do whatever you can to be happy." So I went home and that's when I started filming. I took a walk around the block and I started filming my journey, and I was like, you know what, I want to film this. Like something in me was like, I want to film this because if it is cancerous, like I want to have all of these moments where I was scared, and if someone else is in this position, I want to be able to help them to not be scared. So I started filming and I was just like, I'm terrified, I'm so stressed out, like what do I do? And then I went to a movie with a friend to distract me, and that was so helpful. So if you're ever in that position, distract yourself and like do whatever you can to like be happy in those moments. So the next day comes and I get to the clinic and they're like, "Put on your little gown and wait in this room and the doctor will be right in with you." And I was just like, okay. They had to do my blood pressure again. They do all this stuff. And I asked the nurse, like, "Why do I have to do all of this if I'm just getting my results?" And they're like, "Oh, just, you know, just because it's procedure." And I just was like, okay. So I go in there and then I'm waiting. I've like filmed a little bit of me waiting. And the door opens and a doctor and 2 nurses walk in. And they do not look happy. And the nurses are looking down on the floor. And the doctor's has a file in his hands. And he turns to me and he said, "Amanda, I'm so sorry. I have bad news. And I'm here to tell you that you have breast cancer." And I was by myself and I was just like, what? Like what? Like I have breast cancer? What? I'm 32, I'm healthy, I'm like so fit, like it doesn't run in my family. Like what? What are you talking about? He was like, "It's called DCIS, it's called ductal carcinoma in situ. And essentially it's stage 0. That's what they used to call it, but they don't call it that anymore, which is good because then they take it more serious. But they're like, it's encapsulated in the cells, meaning that it hasn't gone out of the cells. It's not invasive. And we caught it as early as possible." And I was like, okay. And I just was like crying, but I was like processing it. And it was just like a lot, like everything was swirling in my head. And the doctor was like, "Your life is going to be completely different from here on out. You're going to be in a lot of doctor's visits. You're going to be very busy with this for the next year or so. So just prepare yourself." And he was like, "I want you to do genetic testing. I want you to go get an MRI. I want you to go get a PET scan, and then we'll take it like step by step." And I just was like, I don't know what any of this means, but like, okay. And like usually that's every cancer patient's head when they're diagnosed. It's just like, what? Like what? Like no, like you're lying to me. Like what? What are you talking about? And so we had this conversation. He wrote down what my diagnosis was, and I scheduled my genetic testing, and I scheduled my, or maybe they called me, I think they called me later to schedule my MRI and my PET scan. And then I left, and I called my mom on the phone when I got in the car, and I was hysterical. I could barely even get it out. I was like, Mom? She's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? I was like, I have breast cancer. And I couldn't even breathe. I was like, like bawling my eyes out. And my mom was in shock, of course. And what I didn't realize at the time, like, my mom has an autoimmune disorder called myasthenia gravis, and that basically affects all your voluntary muscles. And I believe my mom got this because she has never been able to healthily process her emotions. So in this moment, when I told her about my breast cancer, her body went into shock. Her body kind of shut down. And within like a week, she was in the hospital, and she wasn't barely able to speak. She couldn't walk. And long story short, over the next few weeks, she was in the ICU. Meanwhile, I was dealing with all of these doctor's visits, going to get my MRI, get my PET scan, try to figure out where I'm getting treatment at, meeting with oncologists, getting genetic testing, calling insurance, and my mom. And then the other half of my family is dealing with my mom, who's in the ICU. She's risking getting intubated. She's having 20 panic attacks. Like, it was a mess for our family, and such a stressful, scary time. At the beginning of diagnosis, it's like the hardest part, because so much of your time is like caught up talking to insurance and trying to find the right doctors and meeting with oncologists, and like, and also processing your own emotions of like, what is actually happening? Like, how is my life just changing? And this is why now I truly believe that the moment you're diagnosed, you should be assigned a coordinator or someone who can be the liaison between your doctors and insurance, and finding you the best care and making sure that the care is actually being covered for, and will allow you to sit back and be able to process and like deal with the fact that your life is about to completely change. So we don't have that, but hopefully one day. Long story short, I met with the doctors a lot. And then I got genetic testing done, and I was positive for BRCA2, meaning I was more susceptible to breast and ovarian cancer, which my grandma had ovarian cancer. So I was like, it must come from my mom's side, but I'm not sure. My mom recently just got tested, and she's also positive for BRCA2, which is not good, but just praying for the best for that. I met with my oncologist at Valley Breast Care, and I did not like him. He just didn't have any, bedside manner and social skills. And I just saw the room where patients were getting chemo, and I was like, this is the most depressing place I have ever seen in my entire life. They're literally sitting in a semicircle of brown recliners, all getting their treatments. No guests, no friends, no family, no one was in there. They were just sitting there under fluorescent lights, and I was like, I'm not getting treatment here. No way. And when my oncologist found out that I had BRCA2, and I asked about freezing my eggs before starting, getting ahead of myself. Long story short, okay, I went to go get an MRI and a PET scan, and my lymph nodes were also lighting up. So originally when I was diagnosed with DCIS, they were like, my doctors were like, you don't have to do chemo, we're just gonna do either a lumpectomy or mastectomy. But then my BRCA2 results came back, and they were like, okay, well with BRCA2, they suggest getting a double mastectomy so it prevents anything from coming back. But then when my lymph nodes were lighting up, I then had to go get biopsies in my lymph nodes, which so painful. I had 3 biopsies and 3 lymph nodes, came back positive for cancer. So therefore I became stage 2. I went from stage 1 to stage 2 because it had spread. So fast forward, when I met with my oncologist and I was like, what about freezing my eggs before I have to do chemo? He looked at me and he was like, you want to risk passing this down to your kids? You're gonna have kids? And I literally, my jaw was on the floor, and I was like, how dare you say that to me? Like, that's my choice. And also there's testing when you freeze your eggs, yada yada. And I just knew right then, I was like, I have to get a new oncologist. So luckily I had some clients through Barry's who set me up with a doctor at Cedars-Sinai in Los Angeles, which is like one of the top hospitals in the country. It's amazing, amazing. I got in with this doctor. It was so funny because there was a manager at one of the Barry's locations who reached out to me, and she was like, I have stage 4 breast cancer. I've been battling it for 3 years. I'm 27. And she's like, I'd love to take you to coffee to talk to you, just kind of like help ease your mind or whatever. And I was like, perfect. We met and she was amazing. We're still great friends to this day. And she was getting treated at City of Hope, which is also a cancer research hospital outside of Los Angeles. And her oncologist was Dr. Yuan, who was now my oncologist at Cedars. And I was like, this is divine planning and timing, and like this was so meant to be. And Dr. Yuan had just left City of Hope to come to Cedars, and I was like, the fact that she is now my oncologist is like, wow. And the moment I met with him, I just knew like this is my team. They were so emotionally supportive. I was crying and it was so overwhelming, but they told me so much more information than I was receiving at the other place, and it was amazing. And they've still been amazing to this day, and I've had the best doctors and best team ever. Like I literally feel like I'm getting like the best care. Yeah, I was diagnosed on September 20th. I started chemo on November 29th, and it is now May 25th. And I just had my double mastectomy 3 weeks ago tomorrow. So I am getting through, and my life has changed. I've changed, and it's been a lot, but I've been recording my entire journey and sharing it on TikTok. So if you are not following me yet, follow me on TikTok. It's Hi Amanda Butler. And I will continue to share more about my journey. I will continue to share more about chemo and my double mastectomy and other challenging things that I've gone through up into my life, up until this point. And it's funny because though this is the hardest thing I've ever been through, I have been through a lot of hard shit in my life. And I felt like that was the training for this moment, because I definitely wouldn't have been able to get through this without, especially with a positive mindset, without all of the other things I've had to overcome. And so for that, I guess I'm grateful. So I guess if you're going through something hard, be grateful that, you know, it's just, I don't want to say it's training for something more challenging, but it allows you to get through other difficult times in your life with a lot more ease, for sure. But that is my cancer journey, and I will share more. So put in the comments what you want to hear from me, and I will talk about that more. Thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe. Bye, y'all.